be able to see this. So I'll just pause here to see if anybody has any objections to us recording. Okay. Hearing none, we'll sort of get to work. I do want to start by noting that many of us do live and work on the traditional lands of Indigenous people around the world. But, you know, as we discussed in an earlier workshop, it's also time to move beyond just acknowledging this fact and start to address this critical issue as well. And I'm hoping that through the Global Studio, we can at least make some progress in that respect. So talking about these things, one of the first things is we do have a team of people from around the world. And it's so fascinating to me whenever I get this all set up with my remote, and then when I start to press it, it doesn't work the first time. So there we go. Okay, so introductions. I'm just going to ask if maybe people could just briefly introduce themselves and talk about some of the things that they wanted to do with the Global Studio, because I know that everybody has some different ideas. But I'd like to start with Kristen Kornienko. Kristen, as many of you know, has been working both with Athabasca University and the University of Witwatersrand, and she's kindly agreed to be the project manager on the Global Studio. So I'm going to start with her and then move through some of the other people at Athabasca University, and then we'll kind of go by continents, I guess, and I'll try and keep it all moving forward. So Kristen, and again, I'll ask everybody to be brief because I think we have upwards of 17 or 20 people online. So, but you first, Kristen.
Okay, and I'll try to be brief. Good morning, everyone from the traditional lands of the Secwepemc people. And I think I agree with what you said, Douglas, but the land issue is something that is integral with architecture and with what we're talking about, and the question of its sacredness versus its land as a commodity. So I think, yeah, it's an ongoing discussion, and I hope part of this this Global Studio. And I first went to South Africa in 2007 as a Fulbright scholar, and I like to say that's when I was introduced to my white privilege and Western arrogance, and I had an award-winning design, and then realized I needed to actually know about the context that I was working in. So I stayed and did my PhD at WITS, and have been a visiting scholar there ever since, and spent 3 to 4 months there, and have started a company with some friends and colleagues in Kliptown, which is a shack community in Soweto, called 1955 Creative Collaboration, which one of the things which we do with that, and which I'm hoping to bring into the Global Studio as well, is exploring creative alternatives of how we can share what we do. Because I think one of the issues that's intriguing to me about the Global Studio is it's become this really great intersection between practice and academia, and there aren't so many intersections like that. And so from the two primary focuses of regenerative design and diversity and equity within design and education, I think those are both areas that can really benefit from this. So that's my brief introduction, and I'll pass it on to Douglas.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. I was wondering, Veronica, would you like to go next?
Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Veronica Madonna. I'm an assistant professor with the REIC Center for Architecture. I'm also an architect, and I live in Toronto, where I work from. Through this initiative, what I really hope to do is further build the idea of the mentoring network. Coming from practice, recognizing that having mentors in your academic and professional development is really critical. And sometimes finding those that you connect with is difficult and challenging. So through the global network, we hope to develop opportunities for people to connect with each other and find mentors that can help guide them through their professional career.
Thank you, Veronica. And Henry, over to you.
Hey, everyone. I'm Henry Tang, and this is my little my mini-me, Issei. I'm an assistant professor at Athabasca University's RAIC Center for Architecture. And I'm also an architect, practicing architect in Quebec. I think the themes that I would like to explore are EDI and accessibility, as well as sustainability. And I think these would be themes that would intersect with a lot of the networks we have globally. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Henry. And over to Trevor.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Trevor Butler. I'm a assistant professor at the RAIC Center for Architecture. I'm a professional engineer in Canada and in the UK, and I enjoy specializing in regenerative design projects. Really, that's kind of where I see my main area of work and input into this global studio. I'm really interested in the ability to encourage exploration of how we can be more regenerative into this in our design, and to find ways to bring these into actually real world solutions. Great to see everybody, and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Trevor. I'm going to try and sort of work. I'm going to try and work both from north and south and west to east around the world. And so I think from here we would go down to the University of Calgary, and I see that Joy and Vivian, and I'm just looking to see if Vincent is there as well. If you could all introduce yourselves, that would be wonderful.
Hi, so I'll begin first. I'm Vincent. I'm a second year master's student in U of C. Currently, my thesis is on affordable housing, but I'm hope to bring to Global Studio. Recently, we AED has been formed just last year, and it is important to have this network of students in this global studio, because I believe that basically the themes of equity and design and social justice is important, and hopefully this network can build solidarity, and this is what I see Global Studio as a very powerful tool. Yep.
Thank you, Vincent. Joy?
Hi, everyone. I'm Joy. It's nice to meet some of you who I've not yet met virtually yet. I'm with Vincent and Vivian with AD, doing mostly outreach and helping develop some of our programs and partnerships in that way. It was nice to partner with the Global Studio and help put on that workshop with Wanda in January. And there's been a lot of potential from our discussions with the team at AU so far of what we can do to further, like Douglas is saying, taking it away from just land acknowledgements or just talks and trying to transform some of these initiatives into action and things that can be applied to our teaching in school and help expand that scope. So great to speak today, and I'm looking forward to what we can do, hearing what we can do with this next batch of funding. So Vivian, you can go.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet some of you again and to meet new faces. I'm a second year master's student at the University of Calgary. I'm doing my MArch. Like Joy and Vincent, we're part of Advocates for Equitable Design Education, which for context is a student group working primarily with SAPL at the moment. One of our aims is to sort of be a support structure for students who are looking to engage with EDI issues, as well as do outreach with other institutional groups in order to form, like Joy and Vincent mentioned, these bonds of solidarity across different groups and to connect, make design education and whatnot become more available for those who might not have access to the discourses.
Thank you, Vivian. And now, just on Monday, I was speaking with some of our colleagues at Tech Monterrey in Monterrey, Mexico, and Marta has kindly agreed to join us. We hope to bring them into the entire project. So, Marta, I'll turn it over to you. You're on mute, though, I think, Marta.
Hello, do you mean me?
Yes, yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marta. I am an architect and I am a full-time professor at Tecnológico de Monterrey in Mexico. I really like the topic of internationalization. In the past, I have participated in different initiatives of internationalization. For example, I hired foreign visitor professors for Tec de Monterrey in Mexico, and I organized several summer programs in different countries, in China, in Japan, in the UK. And I'm very happy to be here. Thank you very much, Douglas, for inviting me. What else? I hold a master's degree on civil engineering and also a master's degree in industrial design. I am about to finish my PhD that I am studying in an online model with Birmingham City University in the UK. My topic, my research is on education for sustainable development and competency-based education. Thanks.
Wonderful, thank you. And now we move across the country to Toronto and to Philip and Ellie from the Living Architecture Systems Group.
Thank you, Douglas. So I'm Philip Beasley. I'm directing the Living Architecture Systems Group, and Ellie is working with me as the research director. The group is a partnership which is international, devoted to the idea that living systems are involved paradigms that could very effectively be transferred to architecture with tremendous benefit and inclusion and viability. So this research group is devoted to transformation of architecture with that in mind. It produces test beds, publications and creation kits, and also component systems and devices. It will be presenting at the Venice Biennale for Architecture in a couple of months and in future generations at other test beds. And I'm very hopeful that Athabasca University and the Global Studio can be a strong partner in these various initiatives. Specifically, we are committed within the Global Studio to doing some modest participation in the form of some creation component design kits that could enhance the curriculum. And if more resources can be found, then that could turn into software and parametric design and more online work as well. And so this is a flexible picture. I'm hoping to explore how the level of involvement in these ongoing conversations.
Thank you, Philip. Ellie. Yes.
Hello, everyone. Oh, can you please mute?
We can see you, I think. We can hear you.
Yeah, I just think we're going to get a feedback loop. There we go. Okay.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ellie. I'm the Operations and Research Director at the LASG. We are super excited to be participating in the Global Studio. It's wonderful to meet you all. And we can't wait to look together at how we can share some resources and kind of shape a new generation of designers through dissemination and new design paradigms.
Thank you, Ellie. And if I could just suggest to everybody, if you haven't seen the Living Architecture Systems Group website, it's well worth a visit. I believe that both Athabasca University and University of Calgary are both members of the LASG as well. It's received a major partnerships grant from our social science. The same agency that gave us our grant has also given a major grant to them as well. And it's very interesting work that's going on there. And I would encourage you all to visit it. But now we move to Montreal and to David Koval.
Thank you, Douglas. Good morning, everyone. I'm David Koval. I'm an architect and I've been teaching full-time at McGill University in Montreal for longer than I will admit this morning. McGill University, as many of you know, is located on land in an area that has long served as a site of meeting and exchange for the indigenous peoples who lived on this island, including the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe nations. McGill recognizes and honors these nations for their continued stewardship of the lands and waters in the territory that we now share. I'm also a member of the Program Advisory Committee for Architecture at Athabasca. It's one of those commitments that I enjoy immensely. I have a small confession to make. I was on the selection committee that actually recruited Douglas for the position that he now holds. So if anybody has an issue with that, you can deal with me later. Contact me offline. I've been working with Douglas since 2005, when the Canadian Design and Research Network was formed. I think Philip Beasley was also a big part of that group in those years. And Douglas and I have collaborated on a couple of very interesting projects that involve some very exciting travel. One of which was an exercise in South Korea and Singapore that explored the impact on the public realm in cultures where that had enacted legislation that privileged design in the public realm. The report that we published was called Design as an Instrument of Public Policy. And I still get inquiries from time to time about that great document. The other project we did together was a series of green building workshops once again in Seoul, South Korea, and in Beijing a few years later. My interest in the Global Studio is related, I think, to two areas of activity. One is universal design. I co-teach 2 courses in the Faculty of Medicine that explore implications of universal design with respect to a number of professions. And I think for the purposes of this project, my second area of interest is related to a field exercise in which I've been involved as a teacher for many years that develops traditional skills in architectural sketching and notebook recording. And I think Douglas's hope is that we will be able to include as one of the offerings in the Global Studio, well, a global version online of this course. It's a course that I've been teaching since 1981. It's a course that Henry Tsang will remember very well and very fondly. I hope that Henry's going to be collaborating with me on this. And I look forward to working with all of you on these and other projects. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you, David. And now we're going to go south to New Mexico to Tiara Miller.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tiara Miller. I work with Wanda Della Costa. I work with her at ASU through her Digital Design Collaborative program, as well as with her private firm, TWOW Architecture Collective. I am a graduate student from ASU with my master's degree in architecture. And our primary focus with her firm and the program at ASU is Indigenous architecture and design.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I'm going to bounce all the way over to Halifax now. And I believe we have both Larissa and Adria from the Supernatural Collective.
Yeah, we're all here. Laura is also here. All three of us here. Hello, everyone. My name is Adria Maynard. I'm one of the members of Supernatural. I'm also a grad student at Dalhousie University in the Masters of Architecture program. Supernatural is a student-run initiative that was started about a year and a half ago, really kind of brought up from this feeling of like a lacking meaningful conversation about sustainability in our school and trying to bridge those things between academia and practice, and really trying to wanting to start conversations about how we move beyond terms of sustainability and try and think about what more is there. And really realizing that a lot of students were really wanting to learn more and wanting to connect with each other and also with the people out in the world really already doing that work in a meaningful way. So we've done some workshops at the school and made some really great connections all over Canada and across the world, mostly thanks to Laura spearheading a lot of that and leading the charge. So thank you very much, Douglas, for including us in this. We're really excited to work with everyone and make some cool, share some awesome knowledge with everyone.
Well, thank you. Laura and Larissa, did you want?
Sure, I can introduce myself. Hello, I'm Laura. I'm part of Supernatural with Adria and Larissa, and I'm also a Master's of Architecture student at Dalhousie University. We're currently on our co-op work term. So right now I'm working for my professor, James Foran, in Material, Body, and Environment Lab. And we're really just excited to be connecting with a wider community with shared interests, and the mentorship is important to us as well. And we just want to explore knowledge through our workshops. So thank you for organizing this, Douglas.
You're very welcome. And Larissa.
Hi, I don't have too much else to add to that other than my name's Larissa. I'm a Dalhousie Masters of Architecture student, and I'm also away on my work term. And yeah, I'm very excited for this, and I'm excited for what we can bring, and also excited to see what everybody else can bring. Thank you for having us a part of this.
Thank you. And just before we leave Canada, I would be amiss if I did not introduce Carol Mason and Lara Mahedin, who do so much for the Center of Architecture program. So I'm going to ask Carol to introduce herself first.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carol Mason. I'm the program coordinator for the Center for Architecture. I also recently completed a Master's in Leadership and Community Engagement, and I'm hoping to use those newfound skills within this project, mainly supporting Kristen and tying everybody together. So thank you for coming.
And thank you. Carol organized a lot of this, so it's much appreciated. And over to you, Lara.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lara Mahadin. I'm the Student Support and Advising Specialist for the RAIC Center for Architecture here at Athabasca University. So I'm normally the first point of contact for prospective students or students already in our programs here. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'm going to test my knowledge of South Africa. I believe if we were going from west to east, that we'd be in Cape Town first. And I think Yolanda and Hermie are both in Cape Town.
That's correct, Douglas.
Hi, Douglas, yes.
Wonderful. If I could ask you to introduce yourselves, that would be great.
I'll start. I'm at the Stadio Higher Education Institution, and Yolanda is also there this year. She'll tell you about that. We are a higher education institution that is situated in Cape Town and various other parts of South Africa. And I'm busy establishing the School of Architecture and Spatial Design. So we don't really have students yet. We've submitted some qualifications to go through all the approvals, and we're starting short courses. And all our qualifications, because we can design them from scratch, really we are trying to bring regenerative design throughout the curriculum from the start. And my personal interest is in community engagement. So we're doing quite, trying to embed that as well. And I've heard so many wonderful things of everybody introducing themselves and what they're interested in. It's really a privilege to be here, and what I hope to get for our school out of this, and to contribute also to the Global Studio at this point, would be community engagement projects. We have one, for instance, coming up, which is a real project, and it would be really interesting to have a collaborative design sessions. It's usually small projects. This one is in a rural school. We're doing a kitchen. They already have a food garden, but they have this dilapidated kitchen that they're working with
out of. And we're going to build there in natural building methods. So that kind of project, I would really be interested in if we could have studios that revolve around that and where we could collaborate to get real solutions that could be implemented and built on this side. And eventually it would be great if it's not just online and people from elsewhere would also come and participate. Yeah, so that is the one area. And then the other one that Yolanda might also mention is that we're involved in research that look at inclusivity in the studio. And I think this is also a place where we can share some of those thoughts and also get input on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Hermie. And Yolanda.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to repeat what Hermie's already very eloquently described, but yes, I've moved to Stadio after 20 years at CPUT, and I've moved into the instructional design space with an interest, keen interest still in architecture. But together with Hermie, we're developing new programs in architecture and related disciplines. And I think the multidisciplinary approach is very interesting. So across Stadio, which is dedicated or focused on widening access in higher education, of course, as the newest and largest private higher education institution in South Africa, I think there's also a possibility for interdisciplinary kind of collaborations, which I think is the way to go. So yes, I'm very privileged to be a part of this project, and very keen to see Stadio contribute, as we will be valuable, we can be put to good use. We're very keen to get our hands dirty.
Okay,
thanks,
you.
Douglas.
Well, thank you. Now, I'm not sure, I don't know if Johannesburg is further west than Lesotho, but I think I'm going to turn it to Daniela next.
Okay, thanks very much, Douglas. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Daniela Guzman, the founder of a not-for-profit social enterprise called RISE. And we work in Lesotho with an idea to scale to other countries in poverty alleviation through the built environment. We partner with vulnerable communities who need infrastructure development and have a fellowship program for recent graduates who have finished studying all the different disciplines in the built environment and have an entrepreneurial flair. So it's a kind of a pre-incubation fellowship where they get to design. We teach them about participatory design methodology and human-centered design, which is not taught in schools here. And then they get to do everything. It's a practical design, it's a live design and build and entrepreneurship program where they get to build, design and build real projects for vulnerable communities. So they get the experience and the vulnerable communities get the infrastructure development. We're after mentors. For sure, we also offer international workshops. Obviously before COVID. Since then, we've done some virtual workshops as well. So if anyone's interested in doing workshops with us, we've also hosted internships with various university students, masters and undergrads. And we've also done some studio work with universities. So we offer a bit like what the other Hermie and Yolanda just said, we offer real life projects. So really excited to be part of this group and see how we can collaborate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Danielle. And now over to the University of Witwatersrand. And Dr. Mape, could you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Sichaba. I'm a I run a design studio at Wits University, first year design studio. And my own work is primarily focused on indigenous knowledge systems and the way indigenous knowledge systems relate to architecture and sustainability. I've recently started an architecture practice which focuses on the way in which indigenous knowledge systems can be part of the process of decolonization in the ways in which certain spaces are used and articulated in South Africa. For example, I'm recently now working on the new Human Evolution exhibition at the Iziko Museum in Cape Town. And the idea is to introduced notions of decolonization in the story of human evolution, which in a place like South Africa was primarily used for the advancement of negative racial stereotypes, you know, in the context of Black Africans. And how now does one use space and the various tools of exhibitions to change those sort of narratives. And so my interest in being here is to look at the relationship of transformation, decolonization, and issues of sustainability, because I believe that Indigenous people and their worldviews are quite well positioned to contribute to, you know, the globe and society at large in terms of the ways in which we need to draft or script a new narrative about the human story in relation to our planet. I think that's where I'll leave it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sachala. And Ariane.
Hi. There, I think you it's at the right angle that you can see me. So I'm a colleague of Sachaba's. I'm here with two hats. First of all, I'm representing Sarah Charlton, who couldn't be, I'm sorry, Sarah from Cubes, who can't attend this afternoon. And we're wanting very much to find out about the different projects that you're thinking of, and to be able to go back to our colleagues and find out who would be interested in participating in what. Kirsten obviously knows Cubes and the kind of urban-based studios and projects that have come out of that. From my personal side, I'm very interested in equity in architectural education. So I've been co-teaching with Sachaba in a design team in where we're working with decolonial ideas and things like that. And then I also have a PhD student who has been working on accessibility. So I think there are various strands over here that we would like to find out more about, and what we want to know is what you are wanting, what kind of partnerships and participations and things we could slot into. And yes, I think I'm very excited. This whole grouping, I've been working with Hermie and Yolanda some time on the Architectural Education Forum Africa and things like that. So yes, this is a great space to find out about things. So I'm probably going to be asking more questions than tripping in and saying this is what we're going to do. But we'd like to come back to you after today's session with more ideas on what we'd like to be involved in.
Thank you. Thank you. And now we move to Australia and Francesco.
Thanks, Douglas. My name is Francesco Mancini. I'm Italian of origin, but I teach at Curtin University, and I would like to pay homage and respect to the owners of the traditional land of the Whadjuk Noongar people, which is the land on which the Curtin University sits. And we pay homage to the elder generation, past, present, and future, to build a future with them together. For me, this has been an incredible journey. I've been always interested in understanding complexity of cultural contributions to the built environment, in particular cities. The dilemma that I'm facing as an academic who is interested in urban design is that we want to reconcile two cultures, one of which is a society that is a non-urban society. So anything that I've heard today resonates with me and with the group that I represent. I have Stephen Feast, who is helping me tonight to speak with you. So diversity, inclusion, participation, regenerative design. I'm really eager to learn because there is so much expertise from many representatives of local cultures all over the world that it's a great opportunity. I see this as a great opportunity, and as a teacher, I'm definitely here to learn. Our idea is very ambitious. We would like to propose a design studio completely online using a web-based platform, which we have experimented last semester, and we've been working on themes of reconciliation, cultural reconciliation in urban environment. And we hope that if we launch this idea and we can work together and we can design the brief and run this experience together, this would be a fantastic opportunity if we can achieve that. And so thanks, Douglas, for organizing this and for your perseverance in getting this project going on, because we are very excited to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Stephen, over to you.
Hi, thanks, Douglas. I'm Stephen Feast. I work with Francesco here at Curtin, and I coordinate the online version of our architecture program. So we've got students mostly all over Australia, a few overseas as well. And so my interest is bringing that wide network of our students who don't get a lot of engagement with a lot of the campus things we do, to do something kind of exciting and broad and international that, that we don't get to provide for them so much. So that's it from me.
And I noticed that two people have joined us while we were doing the introductions, and I'm delighted to see them. Mike was the first one in. Mike, could you introduce yourself?
Certainly, thank you, Douglas. I want to thank you for such inclusivity around the table. It's wonderful to see everybody. My name is Mike Brennan, and I am the Chief Executive Officer for the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada. The RAC is the only national advocacy body for architects and architecture in the built environment. And we have three focuses that we are working on currently. One that we've been working on for about 3 years now, which is stakeholder relationships and expansion and building partnerships with stakeholders that are meaningful rather than just signing off on MOUs randomly, etc. We are actually executing and doing great work around that. So this is presents an opportunity for the RAIC, as well as the two other main areas of focus around equity and justice that the organization is working very, very swiftly and quickly as it relates to learning, educating, training, both internal and external. The climate action, we had the benefit of speaking with a CEO roundtable for many architectural associations and organizations globally. And we have really been theming what it is that we want to work on together. And this partnership also would be a great benefit to that. The education components of what's being offered and what I see, and we've been having some side conversations, is just amazing. And I'm very, very pleased and happy. Congratulations, and look forward to the forward momentum.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for joining us. Madili, over to you next.
Okay, thank you. And apologies for being late, got the timing wrong. Yes, but hi everyone. Doug, thanks so much for pulling everything together, and congratulations on the grant once again. My name is Madili Okumabwa. I'm the founder of the CPDI Africa, which stands for the Community Planning and Design Initiative Africa. And our mission has been to kind of fast track the development of new architectural languages for Africa and its diaspora that are culturally and environmentally sustainable. And that is what should we be designing as the continent is emerging, using architecture that's relevant to space and place. So it's all about cultural preservation, and also sourcing solutions to a lot of the challenges that we're facing on the continent, using indigenous science and technology. So CPDI started out in 2015, doing competitions, inviting designers from around the world to join us in this research and development of prototypes that we use this science and technology, but in new ways, really to solve problems. So we started out doing competitions. We did 3 years of that. And then this year, we launched the Global Studio for African-Centered Architecture, which is a virtual school. We have professors from all backgrounds, multidisciplinary, teaching on our platform. Students are actual students, they're professionals, they're professors, they're policy makers. And we run these 6-week courses where they can come in and you know, engage in this conversation and bring a new voice or bring Africa's voice to the academy. Is something that we don't have in our standard curriculum around the world, especially in Africa. So we are excited to bring all of our research to this platform and participate with everyone, collaborate, and really making a difference and bringing this contribution to the global built environment. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you for joining us. And I noticed that Wanda has been able to join us as well. So if you could introduce yourself, that would be wonderful. Can you hear us, Wanda? I'm not seeing that your mic is muted. I can see your picture, but I can't hear you. No? I can sort of hear some clicking, but I can't hear you. I am going to, perhaps we'll try and get Wanda connected, but at the same time, I was wondering if everybody could turn on their cameras just for a moment so we could grab a screenshot, and either Carol or Henry, if you guys could help, I'd love to get a picture of all of us together here, because this is a kind of a wonderful thing to be able to see everybody.
Apologies, I'm just having technical difficulties this morning.
Good morning, Wanda.
Hi.
We can hear you now, and so if you could introduce yourself, and that would be wonderful.
Sure. My name is Wanda Della Costa, and I teach at Arizona State University. I teach Indigenous Planning, Architecture, and Construction. And I also run a practice called Tuau Architecture Collective, and we do active projects throughout Canada and the US. One other thing important, I think I founded and am the current director for the Indigenous Design Collaborative at Arizona State University, and it's kind of like a community design center.
Wonderful. And I'm just going to see, I'm sorry, it is a bit of a photo op, but it's so wonderful to see everybody. I don't know if Hermie and Sachaba and Vivian can turn on their cameras for just a moment, and we'll grab a screenshot and move forward.
Hi, Douglas. Are you able to stop sharing?
I will stop sharing for a moment. Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Perfect.
Okay.
Everyone say cheese.
I grabbed one as well.
Great.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to go back to sharing, and I will try and be, I'll try and be very brief, because I know it does take a little bit to get all of these things going, but the key thing, you know, I've done a lot of these grants. So one of the important things is that, now I've got to adjust my screen because there we are. Okay, as long as we fulfill the objectives of the grant, we have a lot of flexibility in what we can do, but we do have a bunch of objectives that are pretty important, and they do go on for a bit, but I've put them in the full text. But just to highlight, it's really about sharing and having a lot of different perspectives that we could share, but also, and we're going to try and make sure that the emphasis is on the students, and particularly in terms of training and mentoring, and hopefully building reciprocal relations among students around the world, but also ensuring that there's this multi-directional flow of design knowledge, and including Indigenous and traditional knowledge as well. And so we, trying to get used to the other things, though, is how can we free up access to some of the tools and resources that are around, and how can we co-create new kinds of content that we could share. And then the last part, looking towards the future, this is, in Canada, we have a whole wide range of granting agencies, and the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, or SSHRC, has a variety of different opportunities. So for example, Connections grants are relatively small and for about a year in duration, But partnership grants, such as the one that the Living Architecture Systems Group has, they are multi-year, 5 years or more, and they are for a couple of $1 million. If we do our work right, and if we can really achieve some of these goals, I see no reason why at the end of this project we couldn't move towards a partnership grant. Certainly we've got an incredible group assembled, and we should be able to do that. So just as a quick, just so everybody knows, we don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but there's a lot of great groups that are acting as co-applicants, collaborators, and presenters. And it's been really exciting, even during the period in which we didn't think we had funding. We've been talking to 3 new groups, RISE and Tech Monterrey and the University of Witwatersrand, and we hope to bring all of them in as well. So this is sort of what our world map looks like, with people working right across the world, 4 continents, 18 organizations, and at least 7 different countries. So, and oh yes, when we add in some of the new ones as well. So this is great, but I would encourage us, if there's others that we could work with as well, we would like to bring them in. So everybody's mentioned the 3 interconnected themes, and there's no doubt about it, they are interconnected. We really can't do one really without the others, and I think that's important. In the interest of time, I do have some slides on regenerative design. You know, the idea that I like what the Living Future Institute says, that it's not just about the environment, but it's socially just, culturally rich, and ecologically restorative. And that we add to that, you know, it's healthy for the body and mind, but also economically fair and sustainable in terms of its economy. Equity in design, in terms of what we're thinking about, in terms of bringing greater depth to the conversations, and also moving beyond the mainstream of discourse that we have, and also how do we include Indigenous and traditional knowledge in a meaningful and respectful way. And we've got inclusive design as well, and looking at the idea that these environments should be not just accessible though, but welcoming to everybody. And so these are some of the things that we put into our proposal about what we were going to do. We'll be developing them with working together over the next few weeks, I think, in order to get all of this happening together and see where we can knit everything together. And there's other activities as well, but I think this is going to be, it's going to be a very action-packed year if we can get all of these things going, but that's exactly what we'd like to do. And one of the things I did want to say is we want to try and get some equipment, and it's in the budget, to get groups of students around the world creating their own content. Now, Rasha Shruru, she runs this wonderful site called Surviving Architecture, and she's created dozens of videos, 5-minute videos on what how to survive architecture school, basically. And so she's very confident in making these kinds of videos. She couldn't be with us today, but she's committed to running a workshop with us in order to do this. And the hope is that we can get at least 8 sets, and I'm going to try and get some donations to get more, so that we can have these combinations of hardware and software, which would go out to locations around the world, so students could use these tools to create and share content. Now, none of this is cast in stone as well. If you know of better ways to do this, I would be very interested to hear from you. But the idea is that students would learn together to create things that are useful to them. We would share all of those things as open educational resources and include them in all of our courses. Then the one thing that we do need to discuss is how do we get ourselves organized? And it would be great if every organization could be represented by a faculty member and a student, so that we could promote events and we could participate in events. There's a lot of wonderful things that in our events, when we keep them open, that happen. What we've learned is that when we engage with some of the professional regulators, like the Alberta Association of Architects, who will recognize our activities as continuing education, it actually brings in a lot of practitioners, which can be very, very valuable as we set up our mentor network. And I have to give a nod to the people in South Africa, because we learned this from them, because by including 3 professional organizations in South Africa, we always have a very good participation rate from people in South Africa. And this is something that we've learned from, and I think it's something worth doing. So trying to decide, if we could start to think about who will be the rep, and alternatives are certainly fine as well, but to make sure that when we have our meetings, there's somebody there to represent your group. And with that, I know it's probably getting close to the hour already, but I can stay at least for a little while longer, and we can have a discussion. But I will pause there and just open it up for discussion. But again, thank you everybody for coming. Did anybody have any questions? I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other.
Douglas, I have a question. After tonight here is late evening. What would be next step? We will have another meeting. We will share ideas through emails. We will have a repository. How do we start collaborating on ideas and pitching projects, and following your lead in 3 areas that you've mentioned?
Thank you, Francesco. That's a good question. As Kristen gets on board, she'll be probably working with each and every one of you, but I would like to encourage you to start sharing ideas through email about how you would like to develop your individual projects. But in particular, if there's a way that your project can connect to something that somebody else is doing, that we can open them up. We've talked a little bit about your studio, how it could be available to students around the world. And
yeah, not only that, but we would be open also to co-design in the experience, at least if anyone is interested. So we are eager to pitch idea, maybe send a one-page document, say, to start with, and see where that leads. If you're agreeable, we would be very happy to do that. To see comments and feedback.
Yep. And then our major thing will be trying to schedule things so that we don't kind of all get happening at the same time, because I know when if we figured out that one kind of major event or lecture a month was about basically what people were able to participate in. When we started doing too many events, our numbers started to go down. So we'll have to schedule everything carefully over the course of the next 12 months. And basically we have, they started the clock running on March the 1st, which is, the way they do it with grants, even though they didn't announce it until after that. But so we're already 1 month into it. And
all right.
So we have until the end of February, although we could probably stretch it a little bit. But think about carefully when you would like the things that you've suggested to occur. But if something new occurs to people as well, I would encourage you to share it, because my experience is that we can always find a little bit of resources to do something if it's really a great thing. And so talk to us if there's something that wasn't in the proposal, but we'd still like to do it. Let's talk about those things. I don't want to shut anything down. Are there other comments? I'm going to bring up the chat because I see there's a lot of things in there too. Okay. Yes, okay, a couple of things. I will be sharing the presentation with everybody, so not to worry about that. And Yolanda has talked about sharing, and Joy has mentioned Miro, and Henry is trying to convince me of all of the values of Miro, so will get going with something on that. That would probably be a great idea. Okay, and Marta, thank you for joining us. We would look forward to working with you. Yeah, so basically the idea is to share learning opportunities. Well, a little bit, yes, it is, but a little bit more than that. We would like to actively engage students as co-creators of open educational resources that everybody could share. And we see in our own courses, there's a grave need to have a wider range of precedents as we teach people about, the history of architecture and urbanism and other things. And frankly, our curriculum is sadly lacking in diversity in that respect. So where we can have students documenting situations, whether it's a building or an environment from around the world, that are pertinent and important to them, I think that's really critical, because then we can get those different perspectives and share them. Okay, I'll keep an eye on the chat, but if anybody has a question that they would like to share, this is a great time to do it. Wow, and there's 27 of us online from around the world. That's impressive. Okay. So
May I ask a question?
Please.
And it might be silly, but I would love to know what is hanging behind Philip. Because it looks beautiful. And it's been intriguing me this whole meeting. If you could give us a little explanation of that.
I think that's a great question, Hermie. Philip, would you care to share with us what's behind you?
Maybe I'll just, these kind of things, can you see that? In these are scaffolding systems which are based on radically lightweight use of sheet materials. They're stretched and expanded. And the idea is that these can be very effective scaffolds for resilient living architecture of the future. So they're prototype building systems that we're developing. The kind of pattern languages that are being developed here are collective, and they result in combinations of things which then can acquire architectural scale. And we're hoping to share some of those in developing these with Douglas and the Open Global Academy program.
Thank you, Philip. And it's too bad Philip has recently moved out of a very large warehouse space in downtown Toronto, and you walk into this space and all of these extraordinary structures are hanging from the ceiling, things that respond to light and to moisture and movement. It's quite magical to walk into his studio when it's in kind of full bloom. And I would say, Philip, I don't know if you wanted to explore this further right now, but I know that for the Venice Biennale work that you're trying to develop some internships of people who might be able to work directly on the project in Toronto, though. And we're trying to see if we can find some funding to look at that. And that would be an extraordinarily exciting thing to see.
Well, yes, that's true. Alongside online curriculum, we are mounting test beds. And a test bed is a vehicle of architecture has very frequently been, every act of architecture could be considered a test bed. Does it stand? We build it, and then it works. But these are also responsive systems, deeply sensored up and mechanical and kinetic, and they are able to have persistent models and dynamic information in them as well. So they can be used for study as well as deep artistic expression and collective gathering spaces too. So at the Venice Biennale for Architecture, we will be mounting an exhibit there, an installation in the main hall of the Arsenale, and we are inviting internships. So if people could possibly join us under safe conditions in the pandemic here in Toronto, in the next 3 months, the door is warmly open, and we do have some safe conditions that we can offer because it's quite a large space. And in the coming months after that, there will be more test beds that we're developing. And so perhaps the door could be opened to some exchange. We've had the happiest of international exchanges as part of this, because it really is a collective kind of interdisciplinary collaboration that involves both architectural form, component design, industrial design, software systems, interactive systems, chemistry, and also philosophy and theory as well. So all of those things come together.
Excellent. And we do have some funding in order for students around the world to participate in some of this activity through the kinds of kits and components that Philip is producing. And I wanted to kind of share with you too the fact that I'm always, it's extraordinary what people are doing around the world. And just the other day, one of my colleagues at Athabasca was telling me about what he's doing. So on Saturday nights, he gets online with Zoom to teach school children in India how to program in Grasshopper using smartphones. And so I think everybody, we all know, I was actually delighted to hear it was Grasshopper, because that's an area of expertise. As most of you know, it's a visual programming language that works with Rhino to produce some of the most extraordinary kind of forms. Very, very interesting stuff. And the idea that you could teach it on a smartphone is pretty interesting to me. So it tends to suggest that we're talking about a whole new world of learning, and we should be really alert to the possibilities of what we could do. I'll just see if there, I don't want to keep people any longer. It's a little bit after the hour, but is there any other questions?
Douglas, it's David.
Yeah.
Just a quick question, going back to what you said earlier about the opportunity to identify student partners.
Yeah.
And going back to Francesco's question, would that be a logical first step for many of us to recruit and identify one or more students who are going to be attached to this exercise for the next year or so?
I think that's an excellent idea. Yes, please. I know in some cases, for example, the University of Calgary and at Dalhousie, we are actually represented by students, which I think is excellent. But I think we should all try and identify students who might be able to participate fully in this.
One or two or three, something like that.
At least, let's say at least one, but I don't want, the last thing I want to do is exclude anybody. So
Great.
if there's more than one who would like to participate, because we know people get busy and sometimes not everybody can attend. So if we had at least one, and the role of the students and the faculty member is really to make sure that people know about this opportunity, because everybody's being bombarded now, right, with all sorts of activities online, and it's hard sometimes to focus in on what would get people to pay attention. So that would be great. So yes, so let's make that a next step to identify student representation. I'll get to your question in a minute, Vincent, but Danielle is asking what the selection criteria for the student would be and what would be expected for them to do. It really is to promote participation in these activities. And the selection criteria is really, I would say, enthusiasm for this kind of work. But I would let each organization pick the students as they see fit. And over to you, Vincent.
Yeah, so for me, I think this is the amount of participants and from professors to faculty and establish the uni. So I hope as a student, we can come together and really make a difference and not just have activities and workshops, but rather as a collective voice. For example, right now, things that are affecting students are tuition fee. The curriculum is still not decolonized and stuff like that. So if we can have, after the workshops or panels, we can have a joint statement, I think that's more powerful.
Okay.
Because right now, even COVID, despite the COVID and online classes, I mean, like universities in U of C, tuition fee is a big thing. The tuition fee hike and all this stuff. So I think this should be besides just workshops and learning, I think this is where students and those people who care about education and really equity, inclusive and diversity, we should come together and be a voice, because we represent, and the word global is very important, I think.
I think you're absolutely right. It is, we now, we start to identify some of the structural barriers that are inherent in post-secondary education that keep underrepresented groups out. And there's no doubt about it, tuition is one of those. We even find that sometimes our registration process, our schedules, even the semester structure, a lot of the structures that we have are actually detrimental to being inclusive. And so we really need to address this. One of the things that I actually was gonna, as we start talking about who could give us talks and things like that, there's, I believe her name is Stacy Williamson. She was wanting to study architecture in the United Kingdom, but she found that the cost was so prohibitive that she could never afford it. So she started to build her own curriculum by going into architectural offices and engaging in various kinds of projects. So it would be very interesting to hear her point of view on some of these things. So thank you for raising that. And it is, we need to identify some of these structural barriers as we move forward. And so Francisco is noted that if we promote the project online, we should have a logo, an inclusive, recognizable image. And yes, I would, it's almost something that we could do, is the idea that we could develop a logo, and perhaps a student could develop a logo, or maybe we could even have a mini competition for the logo that would be try and create the kind of the image that we want. So I think that would be a great idea. Okay. Well, and Joy mentions that she loses her student status in a month when she graduates, and so congratulations about that. But we all really do hope that you will still help and participate in this, Joy, because you do bring a lot to it. So please, I think we should. Membership in this group is the last thing we want to do is be exclusive. So we want to make sure that everybody is participating. And the other thing I think is really important is the mentoring network. We've got a whole bunch of people from across Canada, but we hope to expand it so that we could work with students around the world to talk to them about, what's the best way to enhance their career, what's the best way to move forward. Make sure that they have good information about how to become a licensed architect, and also how to overcome the barriers that they'll encounter. So I know Veronica has kindly agreed to lead that, and I think she's even going to meet with Daniela about this later, because Daniela was explaining to me how important that is in Lesotho. But I would encourage, and I hope that everybody who's on the line today could, in some form or capacity, actually work as a mentor as well, and work with students from around the world. So it's definitely, we probably can't always meet as a big group, and we probably will have to splinter and have breakout activities. But I think that is going to be part of the whole agenda for this kind of global studio. Okay. Are there other comments or questions?
I have one more. Doug, you just made me think that if we discuss a number of projects, certainly one of the objectives is to prioritize them or find the appropriate time where everyone is comfortable to run them. But then we could also imagine that we can have a sign-up sheet. So each of us can sign up for a particular project and start forming teams that can work on a number of projects at the same time, even though they will be delivered over time. This could be a way to engage everyone since day one, if they want, and be ready and having something in the pipeline, whatever that activity is, starting from the logo competition or whatever you think is the best way to start.
I think that's an excellent idea. Yeah, we're going to have some overlap because we've got a lot that we want to do. So yes, let's try and do that. And in fact, I know this is sound like I'm going to try and because I always talk too much, I'm going to try and talk less. But Kristen has put her email address into the chat box, and in the future, Kristen will be the point of contact for a lot of this. And I know Veronica has put her email address in as well. And probably one of the first things we need to do is create a contact list for everybody as we move forward, so we know how to get in touch with each other. But particularly as we bring on student representatives, make sure that we know we can include them. But in the future, Kristen will be the main point of contact.
Can I just jump in for a minute before we end this? To a couple of things, if people could send some input, I think, on what sort of platform makes sense for us to, to develop a website where the information can be shared and people can find things? Is it Instagram? Is it, I hear somebody suggested Miro board, which I'm not familiar with, but I'm happy to learn. Maybe I can talk to you, Henry, about that. But if people could send in suggestions of what they think could be, what they'd like to see or would be useful. And maybe also, as I listen to people there, it seems to me that thinking about how mentorship could be expanded to the idea of allyship where it's appropriate and needed, because to support the groups that are marginalized or less represented in architecture, which unfortunately architecture still has a long way to go with that. And what are things that we want to explore with this project? And are there specific outputs that we'd like to see? And also, I had on my list the idea of the logo. I think it would be great to start with a, with a small design competition to see to develop a logo, and maybe an online charrette. I don't know, because obviously, as Douglas said, we're already a month into this, so it would have to be done quite quickly. So, so maybe an online charrette could be, an interesting way to develop that. But if people could start sending me some ideas about the platform, so we could get that going as well right away, so that we had, a place to share these ideas, that would be great.
Okay. And Yolanda has said, how do we go about it if we want to grow the network? Really, I'm going to, in terms of the growth of the network, if there's a group or individuals that you would like to bring in, I think we should just do it and keep it growing and make it as inclusive as possible. So I'm going to leave that to the individual organizations. If there's somebody or another group that you think would be appropriate, we would encourage them to come in, and because we do, particularly if they represent a voice which isn't here yet. And Joy, over to you. I see you've raised your hand. I think you're on mute though.
I was just going to ask, as people try and recruit a specific student member, and in like past events that others have hosted, if anyone has successful tips for getting student engagement, because it's really great that we want to develop some of these resources, but if the students don't access them, that's an issue. Like even in some of the events that we've hosted over the year, the level of engagement or participation actually varies. So that's something we're trying to figure out. We started talking to some faculty to try and introduce people during like orientation to some of this stuff, but it also is difficult in the Zoom world and with how demanding architecture, landscape architecture, other types of design programs are. So I think that's something that we can try and consider as well, to make sure that these resources we develop are used. And I know that, and how Kristen is bringing up maybe thinking of a platform, we can also think of a platform for where students can have this type of portal. I think at Athabasca U, you've had like a 24-hour like Zoom room or something like that. And there's like Wonder platforms, and people use like LinkedIn groups and stuff like that, but maybe having some 24-hour space too that people can pop into or be a part of this group might be something we can consider as well.
Okay. I think that's very possible. I'm just going to turn to Henry, because Henry developed the virtual lounge, as we call it, and I don't see any reason why we couldn't set that up again. Henry, did you have anything you wanted to mention about that?
No, I think that's a good idea. I think the virtual lounge that I set up, I think there are some issues with that, because I think that we still need to have a communication tool where students have to set a time to meet there. So I think that in combination of Zoom or Slack or something like that, we could perhaps think about a platform where students can easily communicate with each other wherever they are in the world. That could probably be like a Slack app or something like that. And then to also develop a virtual space where students can meet either, I'm thinking less of a Zoom, but more like in a casual social setting. I have a few ideas I could share. Yesterday, I did attend an interesting online meeting where people go onto a virtual space where there's actually, it's like a virtual room where you can actually move an avatar to kind of talk to people in the same space. So I could share that with everyone.
Henry, I think Stephen and I were discussing about new tools for our online course, and we were discussing about virtual exhibition space where students can also pin up their own work and share it. And Stephen, maybe you want to add a few words on that?
Sure. Well, a couple that we found, there's one Australian-based one called At Studio. I'll post a couple of links to that one, but that's an interesting one where a whole heap of, well, all the students in a studio can bring in their Rhino models into a space, and you can all wander around within that space and within everyone's models, which is quite interesting. And the other one is the Mozilla Hubs program that they've got running, which is another 3D virtual space. So we haven't got very far with any of those. Unfortunately, we had one studio that tried to get into the At Studio, but they didn't do it until right at the end, and it ended up being a bit too late. It's something that you need to get students in at the beginning of a project, I think, to make it worthwhile. So that's what we're looking at doing for ours.
Could be a permanent platform where students can hang out at any moment in time and just put their work there at any moment in time.
Yeah, and those are free at the moment.
Well, what I see in the conversations that we had, and I'm here to share our early thoughts about it, is that if we run a particular project that is scheduled on a certain time, maybe it's worth to have a dedicated digital environment for that. But then another part of the plan would be to have a permanent digital environment where students can freely, and students and us can freely interact in many ways, I think.
Okay. That sounds, actually, I would like to hear more about all of those things. So maybe these are things that we could share. I just want to catch up with the chat for just a second, because Yolanda has asked if, should there be some certificate to reward students? Well, I do have to compliment Carol and Lara. They have, after every event, they pump out certificates of completion, which are authorized, which would have been approved by five different organizations around the world, professional regulators, and they pump those out to everybody. So once we get a kind of a logo for the global studio and things like that, we should be able to continue doing the same to make it worthwhile for not just students, but even we find a lot of professionals like to attend our events just so that they can get that continuing education credit. So that's an incredibly valuable way to do it. And I highly recommend it for all of us, no matter what country we're in, to try and reach out to the regulators to see if they would approve participation in our events for continuing education, which will act as a great magnet for people to attend. So that's something, and I know people are leaving and I do appreciate it. But we will explore. I don't know what wonder.me is, but it sounds pretty interesting. Oh, okay, in the studio. Okay, we'll definitely check that out. Food for Rhino, eh? Okay.
One other thing I'd love to throw on the table, just as an idea, is last year the community-based social enterprise that I'm part of in South Africa, we produced a documentary film and about a community project, and we presented it at the Southern African Cities Conference, and we screened it on the Global Studio. So some of you may have seen it, and there's been a lot of interest around that as a way to broaden the audience of who sees the work. But also one of the things that really interested me is at the conference, it generated a different conversation than the academic papers and so on that were being presented. And so the idea of maybe documenting some of these projects that we're going to work on and projects that people are involved in as a way to share them, and then maybe we could have a screening or a film festival after the end of the year-long project as a way to start a really different conversation and a different way of representing the work we do. So just to put that on the table. And also, David, I don't know if, I don't want to put you on the spot, but would you maybe think of leading a charrette for the development of the logo, like a one-day or you know, a couple hour charrettes. Just an idea, and you don't need to answer at the moment, but I'll just throw that out there.
Am I the only David on the screen?
Sorry,
I think I'm the only David on the screen. You caught me just as I'm about to get back into class. No, I'd be happy to do that, depending on the timing, for sure.
Okay, that sounds great. So maybe I could contact you and we could talk about it further.
Sure, that sounds like fun.
Great.
And I do know that people have to leave and get moving. And just to follow up, though, Henry has raised the question of expanding the network to outside of architecture, include history, anthropology, and other things. And I again, if wherever we can find, we talked about allies, we talked about partners. I think that's a good idea, that we make sure that we take a holistic view of what we're trying to do here. Okay, now people are signing off, but we're going to follow up on a lot of these chat things. So if I could just say thank you so much. And what I really want to say is how much I appreciate it, because, you know, when you get turned down for a grant, it is kind of disappointing. And I really appreciate that people continue to work together, even though we didn't get the money. And what a pleasant surprise it was to when they finally said, yes, you do have the money. I've never seen that. And I've done a lot of proposals. And so I was quite delighted, and it is a thrill for me to be able to work with all of you. And I really look forward over the next year for all of us working together. So I'm going to I know it's getting very late in Australia. The sun is actually up in where I am, though, so that's a good sign. And unless anybody has a final comment, I think we could probably let everybody go. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate it. And as I say, I'm looking forward to working with all of you and on what promises to be a very exciting opportunity for us. So take care, and we'll probably send out some action items, and we'll get the PowerPoint out and post the recording to our YouTube channel very soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay,
Good night from
Douglas.
Australia.
Thank you.